What is up, everybody? And we are here to react to probably some of the worst driver predictions you've ever seen. I can kind of remember what I predicted, and I don't think it was that great, but we're going to find out. We're going to go through what my driver predictions was and my constructors' predictions. We're going to actually watch the video, and I'm going to react to it right here, right now. Let's see how I did.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my
Holy
channel.
cow, the audio is not great.
Today, we're going to be doing Formula 1 2023 predictions. We're going to be predicting the driver's standings, then we're going to do the constructors. We're going to start right at the very bottom, and it's going to be the rookie into Formula 1 for Williams, Logan Sargeant. Now,
that's not bad. That's not bad. I mean, when you look at the standings, there was 22 drivers classified in the end because you had Ricciardo replace De Vries pretty much halfway through the season, and then Lawson replacing Ricciardo when Ricciardo broke his hand. So Logan Sargeant actually finished P21 in the standings. You had De Vries down in P22. So P21 for Logan Sargeant. I think that's pretty accurate. It's not a bad guess. I mean, he got 1 point all season in that race in the US, and I mean, he only got it because Leclerc and Hamilton both got disqualified. So really, he was, if they don't get disqualified there, he's scoring 0 points all season. He's had a bit of a stinker, let's be honest. Even though he's a rookie, I mean, his best race of the season was honestly probably the first race of the season, and he hasn't progressed at all. You would think at some Grand Prix he'll be able to show his class and be close to Albon, but it was very rare that he was close enough to Albon. He was always so far behind. So I think it's been a very poor season from Sargeant, but that's not a bad prediction.
Nick De Vries in P19. Many people
that's not bad.
On that hype train of Monza, but unfortunately, I don't see him doing that well this season. I think he's going to have a poor season. Plus, I think that AlphaTauri's still going to be stinky. You know, their livery, a lot of people hated it. It kind of grew on me when I was watching it in testing, but with
all right, stop talking about livery. Did you just hear what I just said? A lot of people at the start of the season were going on the Monza hype train from his Williams performance the previous year in 2022 when he hopped in that Williams car, and I think he got, was it P9, P8 in that Williams? I said he's not gonna, that hype is not gonna continue, and it did not. He got kicked out of his seat. He was underperforming. Do I think he deserved to be kicked out of his seat? I think he didn't have enough time. It was a bit of a weird decision, but that's another discussion. Anyway, we predicted P19. He was P22. I think that's a good prediction still.
P18, we've got Alexander Albon, and I rate Albon. No. He's a class driver, but once again, the Williams just isn't fast enough. So he's going to be down in P18. I think we're going to see a lot.
Okay, this was the first really poor one that I've done. Alex Albon ended up finishing P13, picking up 27 points for Williams, 27 out of the 28 points. I've got him down in P18 in the standings, so I was predicting maybe only a few points here and there. He scored 27 points, P13 in the standings. That's a pretty poor prediction. To be fair, I was basing it off of the Williams, expecting him to be really poor. Still, I should have had more faith in Albon.
In P17, we have Yuki Tsunoda. I think Yuki Tsunoda is a good driver. On his day, he is class, but he's just not consistent enough.
You just saw that in the last race in Abu Dhabi. He is class. I was about to say he's just not consistent enough, which is kind of true about Yuki, you know? He kind of has his ups and downs throughout the season, and you saw in Abu Dhabi, the last race of the season, that was class. He almost got AlphaTauri ahead of Williams, which would have been pretty crazy. And since Ricciardo stepped in, I'd say it's been pretty close between the pair of them. If not, maybe Yuki's been just that slight bit better, because without that mistake in Mexico as well, they do beat Williams. So there's the kind of inconsistency, you know, sometimes he makes that odd mistake and that's costly. But yeah, I was kind of banking on Williams and AlphaTauri just to be at the bottom, way away. And it was looking like that at the start of the year, at least for AlphaTauri. They were looking pretty much dead last, and they were going to finish last in the constructors. And if it wasn't for the last 5, 6, 7 races, it probably would have been the case, and he probably would have finished around P17 in the standings. Instead, he did get P14, picking up 17 points. And yeah, that last result in Abu Dhabi got him quite a few points, but it wasn't enough for AlphaTauri to beat Williams.
Next up in my rankings is Guan Yu Zhou. Now,
that's not bad.
He didn't have the greatest season points-wise last season. It was a bit of a slow start. And
where's he gone on the screen? Oh, edited error.
By the time he got it going, that Alfa Romeo was down back right into the midfield, or at the lower end of the midfield, so he wasn't able to get the points.
So this year, Zhou Guanyu, for me, he's been a little disappointing. I mean, same with Bottas, but like, he's just been almost, especially the second half of the season, he's been almost oblivious. Yes, that Alfa Romeo looks stinky as the season's gone by, but yeah, he's not been there. And to be honest, I think his seat could be at risk next year because he wasn't doing anything overly impressive. He wasn't beating Bottas. He was poor in qualifying, poor in races, and just non-existent almost. And P16 is not bad when he's finishing. He finished, when did he finish? P18 in the standings, only scoring 6 points, the same as Ricciardo. It's not a bad prediction at all. I think I thought Bottas would beat him. He was decent last year. People might have had him higher, but yeah, it's not a bad prediction.
Kevin Magnussen. Last year, Haas made a huge step
Still haven't got one right
from the 2021 season, and they were actually fighting for points on a consistent basis. I mean, they started off the season.
Yeah. Remember that. Haas was were fighting for points. Start of 2022, they finished, I think, P6 with K-Mag. And then 2023, they just couldn't hold on to the tyres at all. K-Mag actually finished P19, only picking up 3 points for the Haas team. So 4 places off here. I think it's difficult to get these bottom teams because Haas ended up finishing dead last in the championship. And it really changed from the start of the year to the end of the year, especially with AlphaTauri jumping up. It's not a great. I just want to get one. Just give me one correct prediction. But yeah, K-Mag, it was a poor season for him. I mean, Hulkenberg pretty much had his number majority of the way through the season. Magnussen had his weekends here and there, but that car just wasn't good enough to really see it between the pair of them because Hulkenberg was the better qualifier, but every race they were doing like 3 stops, sometimes 4 stops in races because their tyre wear was that bad.
I think Nico Hulkenberg's going to finish P14, 1 place ahead of Magnussen. Both these drivers, solid drivers. I see Hulkenberg just edging it, but I think it'll be a very close battle between.
It was close points-wise, but I think Hulkenberg certainly outperformed Magnussen more than most people were expecting. Hulkenberg finished 16th in the standings in the end, so 2 places off. And, I mean, it was a very impressive season from Hulkenberg. He outshot Magnussen the majority of the season, as we've already mentioned. And considering, he's been out of Formula 1 for a few years, for him to get in that car and to beat Kevin Magnussen the way that he did on multiple occasions throughout this season, it's a very good performance from him. 2 off in the predictions.
So now P13, and this choice completely changed after testing because of how the McLaren was performing. So Oscar Piastri for P13. McLaren.
Oh no.
I think they've bottled it. Watching pre-season testing, I think they're going to be one of the slowest out of the blocks in Bahrain. I think they're going to be the 8th fastest car, maybe 7th fastest car in Bahrain, and probably won't score any points. Maybe Lando Norris could get a couple points. They look bad. They look really bad. I think what's going to save them this season is the...
I was right. I was right at the start. But yeah, no, who could predict McLaren having that big of a jump up midway through the season? Let's see what else I say.
They're going to develop fast, a lot faster than the teams around them, and they'll be able to get some points back and claw their way up. But I think Oscar Piastri is really low, P13 in the championship, and it's his rookie year. He's a class driver from what everybody's been saying. I personally can't say it myself because I haven't watched F2, F3, F4.
Oscar, you're a class driver. He got his first sprint race of the season. He's been very, very impressive. I think the only thing that's been letting him down is holding on to those tyres in the race. His race pace hasn't quite been there with Lando, but the qualifying's there, and he's been solid. He ended up finishing P9 in the championship, so 4 places off again. This one was difficult. I'll let myself off because in testing, McLaren looked dreadful, and now I think Lando is going to be P11, P10. Oh, God.
Guan Yu Zhou's teammate in the other Alfa Romeo, Valtteri Bottas.
I was way too optimistic about this.
But I think Bottas is going to get the most out of that car when it's good, because that midfield battle is going to be close.
I mean, Bottas was a little disappointing this year as well. I mean, he was a little bit better than Guan Yu Zhou, but I almost feel like he's checking out a little bit of Formula 1. You go from Mercedes to Alfa Romeo. I don't know, but P15 was the ultimate result for Bottas, scoring 10 points over the whole season. P12, I predicted him, is still... I mean, we haven't even got one yet. We haven't got one. I think Bottas' season was just mediocre. That's all I get out of it. There's not really much to say. There wasn't really any standout performances. I think maybe his best performance was the first race in Bahrain. I'm pretty sure he scored a couple points there. Other than that, you know, it's been meh. I mean, he had a good Las Vegas Grand Prix. He looked like he had good pace, but then got caught up in that turn 1 carnage, so couldn't really use it. Other than that, mediocre.
In P11, I have gone for Pierre Gasly. Gasly just
Nailed
recently
it.
moved
Come
to
on.
Alpine.
Okay, Pierre Gasly did get P11 in the actual standings for the season, so we've got
he's
one.
Finally got out of that Red Bull program, and I think he's going to finish in the bottom half of the standings in P11. He's going up against Esteban Ocon, who is a very, very solid driver, very consistent. I don't think he's going to be able to keep up the pace. You know, you join a new team, it's new surroundings.
I'm going to hold my hands up here. I think Pierre Gasly has done incredible in that Alpine. I mean, some people might not realise he has had a really strong season, and some team orders not going his way. I mean, Alpine is kind of Esteban Ocon's team right now. Pierre Gasly's gone in. He's had some incredible races this season where he's really shone. I mean, he picked up a podium as well. He also got a sprint podium in Belgium. He got that podium in Netherlands. He has been on the pace. He has a very good pace in that Alpine. I think P11 doesn't do him justice. I think he could have scored more points. He's also had some problems throughout the season. I remember that qualifying in Spain. He was 4th, but then had 2 grid drops for blocking people in qualifying. I think Pierre Gasly, underrated season. I think he's had a solid season, and he's taken it to Esteban Ocon.
And for P10, I've gone with Lance Stroll. I think
That's
Stroll
2 in a
is
row.
a decent driver. If he didn't have his dad supporting him, would he still be on the Formula 1 grid? Potentially. I think he's good enough to be on in a Formula 1 seat, even without his dad's money. But I've gone with him in P10. The reason for this, Aston Martin looked really strong. But one problem that I had was over testing. He couldn't compete in testing because of his wrist. So I think he's done something to his wrist. I'm not sure if he's fully broken it. I didn't actually research that. But if he has broke his wrist, he should be out for next week Bahrain. Could be out for the first couple races, and that's points that they're potentially losing. And Aston Martin in testing look fast, so they're going to be really fast at the start of the year.
Okay, that logic didn't really work because he was back in Bahrain, but he was very inconsistent, very poor to Fernando Alonso, and pretty much had a terrible season. He was good for like 2-3 races towards the end of the season, but and also in Bahrain. Other than that, it was a really poor season from Lance Stroll. He was nowhere near Fernando Alonso. He struggled a lot. I mean, I can only name a few races where he was on par with Fernando Alonso, or at least close. Bahrain, it was a good performance. Spain, Las Vegas, I think was a good performance. I can't remember how he did in Abu Dhabi. I think it was an okay performance, but there was nothing really stand out from Lance Stroll, and disappointing season for him. His seat would be at risk if it was any other driver. And to get P10, I don't care how I've got to P10, how I got that logic. I am taking it. P10, Lance Stroll, that's 2 in a row. Give me P9.
Next up, we have Lando Norris. He was the best of the rest last season, and the only driver outside the top 3 teams to actually get a podium in a 23-race calendar, which is...
Lando Norris has had a fantastic season. Let's put it that way. I was going based off testing. McLaren was going to be slow, and I thought he was going to maximize the best out of the car. He did more than that. He got, what, I think 7 podiums because the car, after the updates, they were able to fight at the front. He finished P6, just missing out on P4 by 1 point, and 1 point behind P5 as well. So a good season from Lando Norris, and hopefully I'm begging that McLaren comes in hot next season and he can fight for podiums straight away, because his consistency is very, very good. I think maybe sorting out that qualifying, that odd mistake here and there, because qualifying quite a few times this season, it's either been track limits or he's had a bit of a moment, and that's cost him. I remember Qatar was a big one where he had a moment, and that allowed Piastri to get ahead of him and take that sprint win. I think if he could iron out those errors, he could be very, very... He's a championship contender for sure if he gets that car. It's just, is he going to have that car at the start of the year? You never know with McLaren. Hopefully, they come in good.
In P8, we have Esteban Ocon. Esteban Ocon, I mentioned it earlier. I think he's going to beat Pierre Gasly. He's comfortable in that Alpine surroundings. He's very fast, very consistent.
He didn't beat Pierre Gasly. I mean, he had a great start to the season. Got that podium in Monaco, but he's been he's been good. He's been good. I think Alpine have a strong lineup. They don't have to change it. They've got Ocon and they've got Gasly, both who they were pretty even throughout the season. I think Gasly at times was faster than Ocon. Ocon at times was faster than Gasly. And I mean, they were both there and abouts with each other. And they both got a podium as well in an Alpine. That's saying so. That Alpine was not that good this season. And you know what? We predicted P8. He finished P12. That was a bad prediction. I was expecting a little better of a car from Alpine. Yeah, that was a bad one.
Best of the rest for me will be his ex-teammate Fernando Alonso. That Aston Martin looks fast in testing, or at least for the midfield cars, it looks fast. And I could see him finishing P7.
It was a podium fighter, mate.
I could see him potentially pushing those front three teams as well. You know, you get a wet qualifier and you get a wet race, you get a mixed race.
Oh,
he would be my favourite to get a podium this season, just by looking at that Aston Martin car. Nope.
Yeah, he got like 7 or 8 of them. This isn't a bad prediction. He finished 4th. That might look like a big jump. He was 6 points away from finishing P7. If he doesn't have that race in Brazil, he probably does drop down to P7. I mean, Carlos Sainz just needed a better weekend in Abu Dhabi. It was close. It was very, very close. That Aston Martin was stinky in the second half of the season. But that first half of the season from Fernando Alonso, well, the whole season from Fernando Alonso was phenomenal. 42 years old, and he's doing that. Outrageous. I mean, it was a quality season. He's showing he's still got it. And hopefully Aston Martin sort it out for next year. You came out the blocks firing. How did you drop so far away? You bring in upgrades and it's downgrading your car. It made no sense. Come on. Come out firing next year. I mean, we've only got 2 right. Top 6. There's got to be a few more.
We are on to the Big 6. This is what you guys have been waiting for.
Big 6.
But before we do it, no, I don't have a sponsor. I'm not big enough for that. We are going to look at the constructor standings instead. Now,
okay, I like it.
Gather
I like
most of them in P10, Williams. I mean, it's obvious based on my standings. I've got to go Williams.
Tough.
I just don't think their car is going to be fast enough. They're going to be dead last for me. I think they'll pick up points here and there.
Williams had a great season. I mean, they got P7, just edging out AlphaTauri. That late charge from AlphaTauri almost got them. P7, that's the best Williams could have hoped for. So a phenomenal season, really, from Williams standards. Hopefully they can push on, become a bit more of a midfield team. That'll be great to see, especially with Albon spear fronting it. But yeah, P10, that's a poor prediction.
In P9, I have AlphaTauri. It doesn't look like they've made much progress since last season. It's the same bottom 2.
We were one away. I mean, AlphaTauri finishing P8. That means we've got P8 and P7 wrong. Oh, it's nightmare. Nightmare scenario. But yeah, you could kind of tell from the drivers' standings that these two are going to be the 2 bottom teams. Yeah, one away with AlphaTauri.
Next up, we have Haas. I have Haas finishing in P8. I think it'll be another decent year. At least
they were there for a lot. They were there for a lot of the season. Haas. What more to say about them other than they were just poor? And, you know, money is a big thing for them. And they're 10th in its constructors. It was looking like they could have got 7th at one point. It was between 7th and 8th, and they finished 10th. They get the least amount of money, and that's a very small team. That's the smallest team on the grid. They needed the money. They needed the money big time. Hopefully, they can find a way to come out firing next year.
For P7, I think it's going to be pretty close between P7 and P6. But for P7, I've gone for Alfa Romeo. I can see Haas actually beating Alfa Romeo this season. Maybe if they
they can't, mate.
Hulkenberg with
it was kind of close, actually.
Magnussen scoring good points, but I think Alfa Romeo are going to have enough to beat Haas, and they're going to finish P7.
Okay, well, they had a bigger step backwards. They ended up P9. So the bottom 4 teams we got right, no prizes there at all. I think everybody predicted these 4 bottom 4 teams, and yeah, we just got them all in the wrong order. So still, no correct predictions for the Constructors' Champions. Please tell me I put Red Bull at the top at least. Give me someone.
And battling against Alfa Romeo, I have McLaren in P6. I don't think they're going to have a good year. I mentioned this when I was talking about the drivers.
They had a very good year, mate.
Their car does not look that good in test.
It wasn't good. I mean, my logic was there. It wasn't good at the start of the year. Yeah, but you know what? My predictions next year, I'm just gonna be thinking of McLaren development, and I'm gonna think about that for every team. I might just go wild next year for predictions because it is a very long season. It's very hard to predict it right. But P6 for McLaren, they did end up finishing P4 in the end. They got past Aston Martin, which means I might get P5 right. No, Aston Martin finished P5.
P5, Alpine. Alpine finishing
Yep.
P5,
There you go.
and I've got Aston Martin in P4. It's just Aston Martin look really good. I think they've done a great job in the off-season. Their car looks good in testing.
They were close to getting P4.
I see them outperforming most of the midfield on most weekends. I see them beating Alpine.
I mean, when you look at this now, you're probably looking at me going, why would you pick Alpine ahead of McLaren? Why would you pick Alpine to finish only one spot behind Aston Martin and kind of close? I mean, you look at the start of the year, Alpine were better than McLaren. So I kind of had it right at the start of the year. At the start of the year, it was kind of Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes. Well, no, at the start of the year, it was Red Bull, Aston Martin, Ferrari, Mercedes. So Aston Martin were in that top 4. And then you had Alpine picking up that like 9th and 10th spot. And then you had Alfa Romeo, McLaren, Haas, AlphaTauri, Williams all fighting each other. So McLaren were down there at the start of the year. So I had that part right. I just didn't have the part right where they would jump from back market team to a podium contender. It was a crazy jump, crazy development. And yeah, I mean, that's something that you have to give props to McLaren. So Alpine 5th, they actually finished 6th. Aston Martin 4th, they actually finished 5th. We got to hope that we got the top 3 right. I think my Mercedes delusion might kill it because I think I had Mercedes taking the fight to Red Bull.
Right now, going into Bahrain next week, it looks like Red Bull's the fastest, Ferrari 2nd, and Mercedes 3rd. But you got to remember, it's a 23-race season. Ferrari's always had struggles developing throughout a season for some reason. Mercedes, I think they're going to be really good developing, and they're going to get a lot faster. And Red Bull, they just look unbeatable. So for me, it is difficult to determine where I think the 6 drivers and the 3 teams are going to end up.
Oh, God.
But we're going to start with
Don't
P6.
bottle this.
This might give you a hint of where I think the teams are going to end up. P6, Carlos Sainz. Sainz last season.
I'll tell you what. This prediction's a good prediction. Sainz actually finished P7, but he should have probably finished P4. He bottled it at Abu Dhabi. He had no pace compared to Leclerc. I think the lack of running in practice really affected him. And also the crash in practice kind of screwed him over. And also in Vegas as well, that grid penalty, which was just the most outrageous grid penalty I've ever seen. Carlos Sainz should have finished 4th in the championship. And he's going to be a little bit annoyed that he lost out to Leclerc. Ferrari should have finished 2nd in the championship as well. I mean, they've been robbed a little bit here. But hey, for my predictions, 1 place off, we will take it. He had a great year, by the way. Getting the only win other than Red Bull in that Singapore race. And yeah, I think Sainz, great year. Should have beaten his teammate. That'll annoy him a little bit, but no, he's been much better this year than he was in 2022.
Good luck. Next up in P5, Sergio Perez. Now, you've got a Red Bull driver in P5.
No.
You're probably like, do I think Mercedes is going to be the fastest? I mean, you'll find out in a couple minutes. But I think Perez
no,
P5,
no. I did not do that. Oh. Where have I put Verstappen then? I'm dreaming. I'm in dreamland. I've put Perez 5th. I've got Russell, Hamilton, and Leclerc, and Verstappen. Well, Verstappen's the obvious one. Russell, Hamilton, Leclerc, all ahead of Perez. Hamilton was close to beating Perez. Russell was not. Leclerc was not either, let's be honest. I mean, Hamilton was still in it with like 2 to 3 races to go, and it was looking like he was potentially going to get it.
I think he's going to feel the pressure. Verstappen last year, what was it, 15, 16 wins, unbeatable, incredible season from Verstappen. Perez only got a couple of wins last year in what was the fastest car pretty much the whole year, except for maybe a few races when Ferrari had them. But other than that, that Red Bull was the fastest car. He couldn't come anywhere near Verstappen. And I think this season, those top 3 teams are going to be a lot closer. And when they're closer, you're going to see Perez fall behind the Mercedes.
I tell you what, this is not bad, what I'm saying. It is not bad at all. Perez, the Red Bull was better this year compared to the field than it was last year compared to the field. And Perez struggled a lot. I mean, he had that long period where he was struggling to get to Q3. There was a time when Hulkenberg had the same amount of Q3 appearances as Perez, and it was like 12, 13 races into the season. Perez was struggling in what was the fastest car of the season. If it wasn't for that first 5, 6 races where he was neck and neck with Verstappen, he might have finished 5th in the standings.
Now into P4, I'm going to go with the other driver, Charles Leclerc. And that means I think Ferrari are going to finish P3 on the constructors' standings.
Sweet.
And I think
we
Ferrari,
take that.
like I was saying,
we take that.
Going to start decent.
We take that. Ferrari P3 in the standings. My only worry is We haven't shown where the two Mercedes drivers. Please tell me I haven't predicted a Mercedes driver to win the championship. Ferrari finished P3 in the constructors. Leclerc actually finished P5 in the drivers, but level on points with Fernando Alonso for P4. So he was so close to getting that P4. Leclerc's had a phenomenal season as well. I think qualifying, he's been the best qualifier on the grid, one of the best. And yeah, I think that if that Ferrari was more consistent, he would be able to show it a bit more. But yeah, a solid season from Charles Leclerc. P3 in the constructors, I'm taking that. I am taking that. Please tell me I didn't have Mercedes delusion.
In P3 and third in the driver's standings, I see George Russell. I think he had a phenomenal season last year in the car that he was in. Mercedes were clearly third best.
I've had it between Hamilton and
Verstappen. The season, they were hovering around fourth best. But third best, and I think for the first however many races it was, he was called Mr. Consistent because he was finishing top 5 every single race, consistent. Which was quite a feat up until that crash.
Okay, you're waffling. You're waffling. Okay, enough of that waffle. Russell's had a poor season, let's put it that way. He had a great Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. I mean, great way to end the season, but he's only scored 2 podiums compared to Hamilton's 7, I think it was. I mean, Hamilton's been a lot more consistent. Russell has struggled quite a bit. Got to remember as well, I mean, Russell, he did have that engine failure in Australia. That was when it was looking close between Hamilton and Russell. But yeah, no, over the course of the whole season, Russell's been off the pace. Qualifying, very good. He's been very close to Hamilton, and fair enough. You know, they've been pretty much neck and neck. I think it was 11-11 in the end. So qualifying, brilliant. Race pace just wasn't there, and he was making some silly mistakes. I mean, you remember that mistake in Canada? He was trying to hold on to the front with Hamilton and Alonso and just put it in the wall. And there's been a couple mistakes here and there. So, I mean, it was a fantastic Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Got Mercedes over the line for that P2. Just needs to bring back that consistency once again. He is Mercedes' future. But yeah, I can't believe I predicted him P3. He finished P8 in the end. Please. No. I feel like I must have predicted Mercedes to win the Constructors.
Do I think it's going to be a close battle for the 2023 championship? Not really. No. I think Verstappen is going to run away with it and take first place. Hamilton in P2.
I'm taking it. Now, I said he would run away with it.
Mercedes are going to have a decent car. They're going to be fighting Ferrari a lot. It's going to be a little bit too fast for Mercedes and Ferrari. Mercedes will pick up wins here and there.
Nope,
same
no
with
wins.
Ferrari potentially. Well, I hope so.
Ferrari got one.
3 teams are winning races. But I think Mercedes are going to have Ferrari. But I think Red Bull and Verstappen as a pairing is going to be too quick for Hamilton and Mercedes. And I see
it was too
Max
quick for
Verstappen
everyone, mate.
Will finish runner-up. I think Red Bull will have enough as well to win the constructors standings. And take that from Mercedes.
I'm relieved.
So I think it'll be another Red Bull double.
We take
Verstappen, who had an unbelievable season last year, he won't win as
that's not terrible.
Won't win as
yeah, that's how it. I mean, I'll take it. The top 3 teams I got in order. But the thing is, a lot of my predictions that I got right were kind of, I wouldn't say like obvious, but like it was kind of like the predictions that you would kind of predict. You know, Verstappen to win, obvious. Red Bull to win, obvious. You know, I had the Mercedes drivers up there. That was a bit of a gamble. Hamilton got P3. He was close to P2, so I'd say that's not a bad one. I mean, looking down, it's not great. It's not great. The only I got Lance Stroll in 10th. I got Gasly in 11th. Verstappen in 1st, and that was pretty much it. It wasn't the best of the predictions. Let me know in the comments down below. Give me a rating out of 10, actually. Rating out of 10 of how good my predictions was. Bearing in mind, the driver standings is always going to be incredibly hard. I mean, the top 6, you could probably get right. After that, it's a bit more of a lottery when you look at it. I mean, Fernando Alonso even snuck his way into the top 6, which I think no one would have predicted at the start of the year, even with preseason testing, to see that Aston Martin be on par or even better than Mercedes and Ferrari a lot of the times. And I think it was a tough year to predict. So let me know in the comments, out of 10, give me a rating of what you'd give me. And let me know if you guys made any predictions and how well you did. And yeah, I mean, I guess that's the end of the video. And we'll do another one next year, next March. We'll try and do better. And yeah, I guess we'll see you guys next time. Make sure you leave a like, subscribe, and peace.